Hello, everyone. A very warm welcome to another exciting episode of Psychology Talks. And today we're going to discuss a very important topic, and which is very hot topic these days. The topic about attention span. And we've witnessed actually over the years that because we are constantly bombarded by a lot of information, and we are overusing these gadgets that constantly try to grab our attention, and we end up actually losing our span of attention. And the researches and studies shows that over the period of time our attention span has decreased significantly because our mind is constantly juggling with different kind of activities at the same time. Like we are getting into the habit of multitasking, and when we are in getting into the multitasking, we are like we somehow attracted to do lots of things which are not needed. And these, like especially these social media sites, these technology and these gadgets are taking our attention, and we are losing our performance, productivity, and it has several negative impact on our daily lives, on our performance, and on our overall well-being. And to discuss this topic, I've been actually looking forward to this episode for so long because this topic is very important, and the guest is also highly esteemed and renowned, who has done a lot of research in this particular field. Her name is Dr. Gloria Mark, and she is the Chancellor Professor of Informatics at University of California, Irvine. Her groundbreaking research has been published in top journals, conferences, and garnered widespread acclaim and numerous paper awards along the way. Her work on multitasking has been featured prominently in the media with appearance in renowned publications like New York Times, Wall Street Journal, NPR, Atlantic, and BBC. And today we have the opportunity to discuss this topic with Dr. Marks. So let's welcome Dr. Gloria. Thank you so much for joining. It's an honor to have you today with us.
Oh, thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, and your journey is absolutely amazing. Like, I've read your book, it's amazing, and I would actually highly recommend everyone to get the book Attention Span. It talks about every possible question that at least I had about how the attention is, like, how we actually juggle with the multitasking, and how our attention span is decreasing. And there are lots of research that you have proven, which have shown in the book, which really helpful to understand that what is happening with our attention and how we can actually improve that. So we're going to discuss today this as well. So I have actually given a very brief introduction that you are a chancellor of University of California, but I know there's a lot more to it. So please share your a little bit of background and with our audience, so our audience will get to know you better.
Well, maybe one of the things that people don't know about me is that I started out being an artist
Yes.
and never thought I would do anything else. I was just fascinated with art, and then the reality of making a living as an artist hit me, and so I, went in another direction. I'd always been good in math and science, so I thought, well, it's a lot easier to make a living doing that. And I chose psychology because I was just really interested in people and how people behave and how people think. So um, I uh, learned about technology by chance. I sort of got almost by accident. I love the saying, chance favors the prepared mind. And so my mind was pretty much prepared for anything after I graduated. And I got a job at a company, um, which electronic data systems, some of you might know. which had an electronic meeting room for groups, and I thought I had walked into the future. I couldn't imagine that technology could be used to support collaboration and to support people's work, and this was back um, in the 1990s, early 1990s, and it was eye-opening, and I thought, "Wow, I've stepped future," and since then, I've been studying tech use and how it affects people, and in particular, I'm just really fascinated with how it affects our attention and,
Yeah,
our mood and our stress. So that's
yeah.
that's a bit of
So
background.
I understand that you mentioned that you are an artist. It's really attracts me because the one thing, especially when I was looking for someone to actually invite, and especially when I was researching on this especially particular topic, that particular thing actually struck me that you're an artist, and especially in this field when lots of numbers are required, because what I used to think that artists are more into abstracts, and they're so these two things, I think it's a great combination, and I think that is why you are into this, that you can understand the abstractness and the logical part both together. So anyways, let's move to the discussion of our today's topics. So nowadays, like especially your book is also you talk about that overall that our attention span is decreasing, right? And so I want to understand that what are the reasons for this decreasing span of attention.
Yeah, so first of all, let me say a little bit about the data. So we started measuring attention spans 20 years ago, 2003. And at that time, we were using stopwatches to follow people around. Every time they switched attention, we would click on the stopwatch. I prefer to use objective measures as opposed to self-reports because people are just notoriously bad at estimating how much time they're spending on something. So 2003, we found people averaged about 2.5 minutes on any screen, right,
Mhm.
before switching to do something else. If we looked at any activity that people did in the knowledge workplace, and we were looking at knowledge workers, we found every 3 minutes on average that they switched. Fast forward in the last 5, 6 years, 2016 through 2020, right before the pandemic, we found that attention spans on any screen averaged 47 seconds. For those of you who know what medians are, the midpoint of the data, that's 40 seconds. That means half of all the observations were 40 seconds or less. So, what happened in those 20 years? Well, a
Yeah.
lot of things happened. The smartphone was invented, right? So, in that was 2007. The smartphone really was a game changer for a lot of things, but it had an impact on attention. Social media, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Facebook was originally launched in 2003 and then it exploded into widespread popularity. Then Twitter came along, Instagram, Snapchat, and of course TikTok. TikTok is, a real
Yes, it's
um, killer for attention. So, and of course, e-commerce just ballooned. E-commerce was everywhere, and also just a lot of services that are required, like medical services, government services, required that we use the internet for these. So all of these things were happening in the last 20 years, and our devices became such an integral part of our lives. And of course, this affected our attention spans.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, this in a way, it is. I would say it has improvise our life, right? That
Uh,
everything is on our fingertips. But at the other side, the negative side is that it has decreased our like attention span. So I want to ask like that. what are the negatives you can see that how it has negative impacted our brains or our attention span. Like for example, if the attention span has reduced, then how it is negatively affecting our lives.
Yeah, so probably the biggest thing I would say is that it's impacted stress. So
Yeah.
we find a very strong correlation between the amount of attention shifting and the amount of stress that people experience. And we measure this with heart rate monitors. And I want to mention that nearly all of my research is done in the workplace, in what's called in situ, in the wild, in the real world. So I'm capturing what people are doing while they're using their devices in their natural environments. I've done laboratory studies as well, but we're seeing stress correlate very strongly with attention switching. I did a study some years ago where we cut off email in a workplace for a
Yeah.
work week. And
Yeah.
we found that without email, stress went down. Right. And again,
Mhm.
this was measured with heart rate monitors. So that actually implies a causal link, right? You remove email, stress goes down. And email is a big source of
Yeah.
distractions. It's also a big source of stress. And
Yeah.
we find people check email on average 77 times a day because we, in our studies, we log computer activity. So we're seeing exactly what people are doing on their screens in real time, synced together with the stress they're experiencing. And we use other sensors as well. So, yeah, so I would say the
Yeah.
biggest impact is
It's
stress
the
on
stress.
our
Yeah,
lives.
in your book, you also mentioned that this is also linked with the kind of personality types. That people are who are prone to actually check the emails are kind of they're more into this, are more conscientious, and they want to know that what's happening to them. So, do you think that it is really linked with the personality types, or is it because of these I would say that highly stimulating, or those are the more like these there we get more information constantly, that's why we are more prone to see those emails.
Well, it's both, right? So
Mhm.
everyone is affected by, the access to information and people at our fingertips, like you say. But there are personality differences. So, I'm a psychologist, and psychologists we look at individual differences. And yes, personality makes a difference. People who are conscientious, they monitor their inbox
Yeah.
because they don't want to let anything slide by.
Yeah.
And people who have a personality trait called neuroticism are
Yeah.
much more susceptible to stress when they multitask and for that matter, checking email. So yes, there are individual differences, but everybody is susceptible.
Yeah, that's true. And actually, you talk about in your book about this, that these algorithms are designed to actually make us more conscientious, right? Then, like, it's so here the question is that are we actually slaves to these algorithms, like because of these, because somebody who understand our mind is making us use more, right? So it's kind of what is, and you talk about it about like, do we have that kind of free will to actually go against all these algorithms or not? So what's your view on that?
Yeah, so it's the answer is it's complicated. Algorithms absolutely play a role. Absolutely, because
Yeah.
every time we go on the internet, and I'm sure most listeners know this, that we leave digital traces. And these digital traces are used by tech companies and, you know, ad companies to create profiles about us. And then these, in turn, are used to construct algorithms to send us information geared to what our interests are. So if you're an introvert, and you're shown an ad of, an individual sitting at home reading a book, you're more likely to click on that ad
Yeah.
because it it's geared toward your introverted nature. If you're an extrovert, you might be shown an image of people at a party, lots of people around drinking, and you might be more likely to click on that because again, it's geared toward that extroverted side of people. Algorithms absolutely play a role, but I also maintain that we are not complete slaves to algorithms,
Yeah.
that there is,
Yeah.
I do think that people have the ability to have agency over their behavior. If we were, if we had no free will, then every single time an algorithm would come with an ad or notification, we would click on it, and we do that a lot. We absolutely do that a lot. Um, but we also know that when people turn off their notifications or use ad blockers, their attention spans are still short. So we know there's something else going on besides just, being
Mhm.
pawns and
Yeah.
behaving and reacting to notifications. But, absolutely algorithms play a strong role. I do worry about them with young people and social
Yeah.
media for the kind of information that's geared toward them, but that's a different discussion.
Mhm. Yeah, that's true. I mean, and you're right that we do have some agency that we can control. And but you mentioned that uh, even if people who just have ad blockers and everything, still you see that their attention span is decreasing. So what could be the reason for that?
Well, there are a lot of reasons. So, you mentioned personality, of course. That's one reason. We are social beings. It's hard to go against our
Yeah.
social natures, and this is why we respond to emails, why we respond to texts and Slack and social media, because there are a lot of social dynamics that are intertwined. For example, social capital is when we exchange favors and resources with other people, and if your colleague at work does a favor for you, you want to pay them back and you want to do a favor
Yeah.
in return, and that's called maintaining a balance of social capital. And so we always want to maintain a balance of social capital with people who have some kind of meaning for us, like our family, our friends, our colleagues, our managers. That's why we're looking for their emails. We answer their emails. We're with social media. We want to make sure we're in good favor with them. um, there's also peer pressure. There's identity is really important. People are very concerned about maintaining identity, checking social media, checking their online presence all the time. But that's just social natures. There
Yeah.
are other things as well. And I even discovered that the very design of the internet is designed for distraction. And for those of you who know the
Yeah.
history of the internet and know about Vannevar Bush, whose
Yeah.
idea, the memics, actually, started the whole idea for the design of nodes and links, which is the structure of the internet. The idea is that information should be associated together. And it's a lot easier to make these relationships between information, right? So if you're thinking, if you read the word cat, think of dog, or you think of
Yeah.
meow, you think of something associated. And that's what links do. So you're reading a page on the internet, you have all kinds of associations in your mind, and suddenly you see something that maps on to how you think. And the important part of this whole piece is that the theory of how our memory is structured is by
Yeah.
associations, right? That's
Yeah.
the idea of semantic um, network theory of the mind. And so, yeah, it's hard
Yeah.
not to respond to information that, we find an association with on our mind, and it's so easy on the internet
Yeah.
to click that link, learn more, then we click again, learn more,
Yeah.
and then we're down a rabbit hole. So
Yeah.
yeah, so the internet plays a role as well.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And absolutely, like you remind me of the this to the Freud's concept of free association. Like when the mind is the kind of thoughts are linked together from one to another, like these thoughts trigger the kind of the association. And that's what happens like when we actually go on the Facebook or Insta or even on any social media link, these
Hmm.
we start seeing maybe the videos or the posts that are linked with these kind of associations, and we end up wasting a lot of time. We thought that we just go and check for 5 minutes, but then when
Yeah,
we start scrolling, we just say, oh my god, it's 1 hour we wasted. And
that's right.
that's you're absolutely right that these kind of distractions, this is the design that works to distract us. So my next question is that how we can actually protect our focus or protect ourselves from this kind of distraction.
Yeah. So, of course, we talked about turning off notifications and using ad blockers.
Yeah.
That's something everybody should be doing. But there are things that we as individuals can do. I also think organizations can do things and society can do things. So let's start with individuals. So a lot of things that we do are automatic, right? So we see our smartphone, we pick it up, we swipe it open. That's an example of using automatic attention, right? It's a habit that we've developed. Or we have this urge to check email or an urge to check the news or social media, and we just immediately go there. It's an automatic response. And, it's because it's so easy to do that. You have a thought that springs into your mind. You're curious about what's happening in the news. You can click and immediately get there and find out the answer. So, what we need to be thinking about is to become more conscious of these automatic actions, and let's raise these automatic attentions to a conscious level. And if we can do that, we can be more intentional in how we act toward them, and we can design a plan then. So how do we become more conscious? Well, um, I use the term meta awareness, which means being aware of what you're doing as it's unfolding. Right? That's really important because so many things we do, we're just not aware of it. So, how do we get to that point of achieving meta awareness? We can probe ourselves. And you probe yourself to learn to recognize when you've got these automatic actions. Now, it's a skill that can be developed. And, at first it was, for me, it was a little awkward and I would forget. And now it's just second nature because in a sense, you could think of it as a new positive habit that I created, which is probing myself and understanding the reasons. Why do I need to read the news right now? Why do I need to go to social media? For me, it's usually because I'm procrastinating or because I'm bored, or the task just seems too daunting, right? It's just too much. And so then I think about what can I do to prevent boredom? What can I do so this task is not so daunting? I can divide it into smaller pieces or smaller chunks. It's an example of forming a plan to be able to tackle your work. Or you can have a very simple plan that says, okay, I'm not going to check social media. I'm going to work 30 more minutes, or I'm going to work for another hour, and then I'll reward myself and check social media. So developing meta awareness, it's a skill, right? It's a skill that
Yeah.
we need in this digital age, and it's a way for us to get agency over our actions. So that's one thing. Another thing I'll mention is using forethought. Forethought is about imagining our future selves and how we want our future selves to be. Now, we tend to think of future selves 5 years from now. Someone who's maybe watching this, who's in college, might be thinking, okay, where do I want to be when I graduate, or where do I want to be 10 years from now? We can also think of forethought in a much shorter time frame, and we can think of it as at the end of the day. So, how do we want to see ourselves at the end of the day? Well, whenever I have an urge to procrastinate or go on social media, I imagine where I want to be at 7 o'clock in the evening. How do I want to feel? That's really important. How do I want to feel? I want to feel relaxed. I want to feel fulfilled. I have this visualization of myself on my couch, and I'm, chatting with family or doing something fun, and that visualization is enough to keep me on track and keep me, you know, basically guided in doing my current work so that I don't go off track. So meta awareness and forethought are two things that can be done.
Yeah, absolutely amazing. I just loved it, especially like meta awareness is like I would just say you use being mindful of our whatever actions we want to take, and being present in our in our lives, that what we are doing and why we are doing. I think again I would say the main thought behind is like we need to know why we are going into social media or why we are doing any act. For example, and because most of the time what I feel is that when we are actually when we want to focus on our work, we know that we are pressed with time and we know that we have a deadline, yet we are actually more attracted or distracted actually by all these social media sites or all these notifications, just to actually get that kind of anxiety away from that particular task. I think that is one reason I feel that our mind gets distracted by these notification, or because we feel that we can get more gratification or we can get more relaxation by these activities instead of focusing on that at the moment. So that being aware of what we want will help us actually focus our attention. So that's wonderful point. And I also love visualization. I mean, this is my favorite technique. So like, we can have visualization for longer time, but you're absolutely correct that we need to focus on our current lives as well, like the very present day at the moment. So that can help us protect our attention. One thing that I was actually, this is my personal, I would say, I think I just highlighted in the email also, that attention is something that, is, as I can quote the Tony Robbins there, that he said that attention is like where our energy flows, right? So
Mhm.
whatever we think about, or whatever wherever I would say that whatever like thing that we want to attend or something, wherever our attention goes, basically is the place that we give our energy. And that my question, like when I think about the human consciousness, that what we are, right? Like they could be a very important information that can raise our consciousness, but if we don't give our attention to that information, we won't be able to raise our consciousness level. So what is actually what I want to find out, that what is the link between the attention and the human consciousness, that can we actually uh, enhance our attention to raise the conscious human consciousness level. I mean, to go beyond what we are at that moment.
Yeah,
I
that's
think I'm able to actually uh, uh, like give the questions the proper frame. I mean, I don't know how to explain, but I think you
Yeah.
get my question.
Well, Amberine, that's a very profound question and would take many, many hours to try to get at the answer. But I can say a few words about that. So William James is considered the father of psychology, and he wrote a book. I think it was 1890, which is The Principles of Psychology, where
Yeah,
he writes a lot about the relationship of attention and consciousness. His idea of consciousness is more about conscious awareness as opposed
yeah,
to raising
yeah,
our consciousness in a a different way. And I love his work because he talks about that. What is attention? It's about putting all of your mind's focus on a
yeah,
particular thing, right? Is you're just engulfed by
yeah,
that thing. And attention is so important because what we pay attention to helps shape who we are, right?
yeah,
We are a sum total of all the things that we have
yeah,
paid attention to and not paid
absolutely.
attention to. The
Uh,
things that we've ignored also shapes who we are. And so that's why it's so important to be able to have the agency to choose what we pay attention to. And in terms of our life in this digital age, if we pay attention to social media, that's shaping who we are, right? We're spending hours on social media. That's also forming ourselves. Or reading, spending your time reading a philosopher like Spinoza, who I think is amazing. That also shapes who we are. So we have to be very intentional about where we place our attention, because we need to think that this shapes our lived experience of who we are. And there's a lot of things that I talked about that are done automatically without conscious
yeah,
attention. It's not bad. For example, you can drive and talk with a
yeah,
passenger, and driving is automatic, right? We're still
yeah,
paying
yes,
attention, but it's in the back of our mind. We wouldn't be able to speak with a passenger if that driving were not automatic. So some things should remain automatic. You can walk
yeah,
and talk with another person. You
yeah,
can also walk and text, although that's not a good
yeah,
idea. We shouldn't be doing that.
yeah,
So yeah, so it's important to think about where we pay attention, because the information we take in the world helps shape who we are. Spending 20 minutes in nature, which research shows helps us significantly de-stress. And our research shows that people become more creative. They're better at what's called divergent thinking, which is brainstorming, essentially. They
yeah,
do that better just after 20 minutes in nature. Why? Because they're looking at so much different stimuli around them, right? There's so much to take in. It stimulates us, but it doesn't overtax our minds. So it's a good thing. So yes, there is a relationship of attention and conscious behavior.
yeah. And I think that again, we need to have that meta awareness or about where we give our attention and whom or whatever like things we are paying attention to. And as you mentioned that, because whatever we give attention to, it eventually shapes our personality or our mind. Or I would say that it shapes our reality, because whatever we
Yes.
perceive is our reality. So whatever we think or whatever we pay attention to eventually is shaping our world. So it's a very deep connection. So,
Yeah.
anyways, I know I want to talk a lot about lots of things, but unfortunately, the time is running out. So maybe we can plan some other session because I wanted to talk about flow, and I wanted to talk about like the big mind and the small mind thing. But
Yeah.
I think that's we should park these ideas to discuss in the other show, I guess. So thank you so much for coming and sharing your wonderful ideas, your insights. Um, uh, what are the best way our audience can reach out to you? You're
Yes.
active on LinkedIn. Any other, like, I know you have the book, of course, on Amazon, so people can actually get your book on Amazon. Any other way they can reach out to you if they need any help from you?
Yes, I have a weekly Substack column that I
Okay.
write, and I write about
Wow.
all these topics, and
Oh,
including AI, because AI is now
wow.
part of our digital lives. And so you can subscribe at gloriamark.substack.com. I
Okay.
I believe that's the right.
You
Um,
can text me and I'll just share on in the comment section
Yeah,
later on.
but
Uh,
I would love to, to
yeah,
hear from folks who
yeah, yeah, sure.
and I'm also on, X, formerly Twitter.
Okay, okay, that's great. So basically, I will share. I have already shared some of the your about the link of your website and your other like in LinkedIn profile. But I will also add the Substack link so people can subscribe your to your article. And definitely, I'm also interested to read more about your work. So I'll
Okay.
definitely subscribe. So before actually closing this show, what one advice would you give to our audience today to protect our span of attention or to protect our attention from all these
Yeah,
distractions?
I think that the most important thing is to reframe how we think about our work and our lives, to put well-being first. And there's such a push to be as productive as possible, produce as much as we can. But if we put well-being first, when people experience positive well-being, and research shows this over and over again, people will be more productive. So let's put that first. But working to exhaustion and even burnout is not going to help us be productive, and it's going to cost organizations, it's going to cost the economy more in the long run when people are burnt out and experience chronic health conditions. So let's focus on well-being in this digital age.
Yeah, I think that's the wonderful advice. And I think for that, we need to have some digital detox or some digital disconnect to have our well-beings or to work for more, to have like more holistic well-being instead of, just just putting off, like closing some in these uh, notification. It's important to, I feel that we need to have some complete disconnection from these gadgets or technology to regain our sanity. So that's wonderful advice. Thank you so much. Before we close the show, I would like to tell our audience that to remind them about tomorrow's book launch of my son's book, who's written the book about the like who's shared the actually frustration about the education system. So please, those whoever is interested to join tomorrow, please find the link in the comment section. And I'm so excited for this launch. Please join us tomorrow. And I'll be glad that you will be joining us tomorrow and then share that how we started that journey and how we ended up writing a book. So, and thank you so much, Gloria, for coming and for sharing all these wonderful insights. I really enjoyed it, and I actually really wanted to learn more, but we actually we are short of time. So I hope that we can arrange some of the sessions. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.